So I get these trollers on my page asking me to talk about political things, and I'm not into politics. I have a spiritual perspective, and I don't have it all figured out, but I'll tell you what I do see from the spiritual perspective. So I've been knowing about APAC, and I don't get involved. I don't participate in that stuff. I live outside of the system, but I know the whole thing is rotten to the core. I am an embodiment of the voice of Mother Earth. So I'm operating in a whole other set of rules. And I know that all this man made stuff is crumbling right now. So let's look at the spiritual dimension. It's not just man made, there is another dimension. Okay, so if you type into TikTok, Christians rule the world, you'll get a bunch of different things, right? If you type into TikTok, Muslims rule the world, you'll get a bunch of posts. If you type in Buddhists rule the world, you'll get a bunch of posts. If you type in rule the world, it'll be like community violation, do not enter, do not enter. We all know who runs the world. We all know who's in charge of Hollywood, who's in charge of the mainstream media, who's in charge of the United States government, who's in charge of the stock markets. And these people are pulling the strings from behind. Like P. Diddy, you know who his handlers were? Yeah. Guess. So, yeah, a couple days ago, my boyfriend was watching this long video like, whoa, look at this APEC. Did you know about this? And I'm like, yeah, I've been knowing about that. And so it's like explaining, it's tracing it all back, all the politics, giving all the receipts and showing how it's all connected. And I'm like, when are they going to trace it back to Satan? I'm like, it's Satan. It goes to Satan. Literally, Saturn. They are working with Saturn. They're creating distorted grid systems, harnessing the energy of Saturn and imposing a distorted grid system over the world. The gods that they work with require a lot of human sacrifice. That's why they do wars. That's why they do ritual SA. So this whole thing is coming out in layers to the public. So first the pre-divorce, right? And Hollywood and that whole thing and the Epstein files, like those are different like layers and dominoes and now we're hitting the APAC domino. I'm like, this is amazing. Like I didn't know how long it was going to take this one to hit, but it seems to be hitting right now. Everyone is talking about it. So the next domino that's going to have to come after APEC is the demonic worship domino. So I know we've hit on it already a little bit, like it's been coming through in hints. We're going to have to go deep into understanding that these people are working with entities. They're working with entities to harness power. And the best way to it's not a beginner's guide. It's advanced because it's kind of spooky and you would need to be spiritually sound to look at it. But if you want to dive in ahead of the curve before the next domino hits to school yourself on this so you can speak about it as the masses are awakening, if you want to go first, order yourself the book Solomon's Key. Solomon is a character in the Bible, a king, a real king who lived. And so you know how Jesus went into the desert for 40 days and 40 nights to fast, and Satan tempted him with all kinds of stuff like, oh, you're so powerful, turn this rock into bread. Or, if you come with me, you can have all this land and all these women, right? And Jesus kept saying, get behind me, Satan, get behind me, Satan, get behind me, Satan. Jesus was a master, right? So King Solomon was talking to Yahweh. Yahweh is actually a demon. So Solomon was in his own spiritual awakening, and Yahweh came and said, I will give you whatever you want. And Solomon said, okay. Solomon said, I'll take wisdom. And with that wisdom, he accumulated all this land and all these women and all these queens. So Yahweh, who was posing as the actual main God or creator God, but is actually just a demon, Yahweh granted Solomon power to have power over certain legions of demons. So just like there's legions of angels, it's army ranking, there's legions of demons. So in the Bible, it poses it that Solomon was so favored by God. But let's get clear about that. Solomon was favored by the demon Yahweh. So Yahweh, being a high-ranking demon, has power over a certain number of legions of demons. So Yahweh was granted, Solomon was granted all this like money and power and fame and wives and lands and things like that from his worship of Yahweh. Okay. And the worship included like lots of ego stroking. He would have to be like, Yahweh, I love you. You're the best. Thank you so much. You're so good. And then he would like go into some evil stuff and ask for what he wanted. So anyways, Solomon, and this is well documented, this is common knowledge. This has got to be the next domino to fall. This is the next piece that has to become common knowledge. So Solomon he got permission to use those demons to build Solomon's temple. Solomon's temple is very related to the Masons because it's related to sacred geometry and building and the builders. So they use demons to build these temples, and they use that technology and that wisdom for masonry, as in stone building. So anyways, I'm going to wrap up the story of Solomon. You can go look it up yourself. If you want to do a deep dive, go straight to the primary source, Solomon's Key. And if you just want to do a TikTok search, that's also pretty informative. So basically, Solomon worshipped Yahweh and called him the creator God, got all this power and money and fame and women. And in the end, he fell because he ended up making a very small offering of just crushing some grasshoppers to a demon that was lower ranking than Yahweh, or I don't know in which ranking it was, in order to get another wife that he wanted. Anyways, because she had a different god. So he made a sacrifice, and then all those demons that he was allowed to bind under the power of Yahweh came crashing down on him and tormented him and drove him crazy. Kind of similar to what happened to Aleister Crowley, who was messing with demons and getting power through demons, and then in the end it all came crashing down on him and he died like insane. Okay, so to put a nice little bow on this, where do we go from here? So I have been initiated into a number of different lineages of spiritual practices, including Sufism, the pranic path, and a wrathful Buddhist path out of a Tibetan lineage. So actually a pre-Buddhist Tibetan lineage, but it goes under the category of Buddhist. Anyways, these are the ones who meditate on the charnel grounds. So what I have seen in my practice of meditating on the charnel grounds, that whenever we get these externalized demons on earth, it's really just our own unclaimed power. So in order for us to heal earth from the archons or whatever, or from these reptilians or these evil forces or these demons, the only way to eradicate those energies from the planet is by claiming all of our whole light for ourselves and not externalizing our power to God. So instead of blaming things on demons or gods or God outside of ourselves, we need to completely own our power, completely own our light, completely own our darkness, and that is when we will walk the earth as the gods and goddesses that we are, with our full power. Demons are really just aspects of our own psyche. They are real because everything exists on multiple levels, but the only way that demons get power or power over us or even have a way to even interact with us at all is because there's a part of our own light that we're not claiming. And darkness and light are actually the same thing, because if you go in a dark room with a match, it's no longer a dark room. It's illuminated. So our darkness is just unilluminated light, unclaimed light. The planets, including Saturn, Satan, they're all just aspects of ourselves. If you want to become a god, goddess on earth, you have to claim your shadow. There is a free shadow work worksheet in my bio and on my website, Love Like an Ocean.